I'm here with Brad Formsma, author of I Like Giving, best-selling author, and we're so glad to have him here. And this idea of, he is the founder of I Like Giving, organization with the mission to inspire people to live generously, and millions of people across the globe have interacted with his content. He also has the top 1% leading podcast of The Wow Factor, Words of Wisdom from Extraordinary Leaders. And super excited to have you on here, Brad. Thanks so much for coming.
So good to be here. Extraordinary leader like you.
No, I'm
we're
so
going to turn
excited.
the tables a little while later.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for coming. You get to speak to groups about living and writing, living generously. What first inspired you to do that?
Well, I had the privilege of a grandpa who modeled it. So many things in our life are about modeling. And we're modeling something. And so my grandpa would take me to his bakery on Saturday mornings here in Grand Rapids, Michigan area, and we would bake these special 16 loaves of bread, and then I would tag along with him to deliver those. And that really was where we started to see generosity in the form of generosity of influence, the way he would help connect people, of course with a few loaves of bread. That was always a fun thing. And sometimes it'd be with a check, and other times it might just be sharing some of his belongings. So he really showed me this holistic approach to the generous life.
That's incredible. And you get a chance to speak to groups all over the world. And there's a story in your book about misconceptions that we have about giving. Why do you think we have those misconceptions?
Well, if you think about what you think about when it comes to giving, you often think, and this is our research, and I think it's money. And so when you start to unpack it, and I take things from a worldview that says, hey, I'm here to give myself away and to be generous as a serving leader, and the old golden rule goes a long way. And so I think when we think about generosity as a culture, it's often money. But when we start to look at what we talk about at I Like Giving in all of our initiatives, the 7 ways of living generously, generosity of our thoughts and our words and our time and our attention and our influence and the way we share our belongings, it paints this, hey, I don't have to be a millionaire to give. Hey, I can play today. And so I think that's really where we come in to try to change the narrative that's out there. And as you know, you get a lot of joy from giving. I mean, I've never met anybody that said, I tried that and it stinks. Not going to do it anymore. The old proverb talks about how the world of the generous gets bigger and bigger and the world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. So I want a bigger world.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I'm
Brad.
Selfish about giving.
Yeah. Now, you get a chance to interview all of these amazing leaders, and has there been any stories or maybe aha moments for you as you've interviewed these leaders in terms of just what you've learned about their generosity?
Well, it starts with the person, and what I often find, I'm asked this as a theme a lot, I find humble, serving others leaders is a theme. Those that have great businesses that care about their employees, care about their teammates, whatever they'd call them, and who aren't willing to do the lower level jobs, even if they've moved to a place in the org where they don't have to, it's still not below them to, they're only asking people to do what they would do themselves. So I see that as a consistent theme. And then I also see that the more that they do that as they grow as a leader, it trickles down. And so I think about my friend Lindsay, who owns In-N-Out Burger. Her Glassdoor rating's 99%. She's very focused on others, but she expects and requires excellence. But they just have good systems, but then they also take the time, and we were just there teaching their top leadership through our program, Generous Leaders, on all of it's a 90-minute training to take these 7 ways into the company to help create a culture of generosity. So I think, yes, they've done things on their own, but I think they're also looking for what's another way to help grow our leaders.
Wow, that's amazing. That's cool that you do that too for different businesses. So given
Someday yours.
Yeah, let's go.
I mean, hey, you just walked into that.
Yeah, no, I did. Yeah, and it's great to have you here too, because you're from California. Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of where you're from and a little bit about the family.
I think if you were to describe me in 6 words, it would be entrepreneurial spirit, life passion is giving. And so when I started the organization I Like Giving after coming out of I would say a more traditional for-profit environment, it was let's inspire people to live generously. And so you're an entrepreneur. What do we all do? We look for something that's doesn't exist or broken and fix it or create it. And I couldn't find well-told stories of generosity that would move people from awareness to action. And that's where the fun happens, or the miracles happen, or you pick the word. And so we started as an organization doing short films that would tell a story and inspire people. So that really was our spark. But then we started realizing, wait a minute, there are businesses and families and the classroom that are longing for this kind of content. So we brought language to it, the 7 ways that I just described. And then in those 3 initiatives, we just help people be more generous.
That's awesome.
And it just works.
Yeah, what's been the reception like as you've been around and kind of talked with different businesses?
Well, I think we're finding a lot of incredible thank yous. We're saying the language around the work of I Like Giving is, I can do this. I can do this. And once they do it, they experience the joy of giving. And biologically what happens. I mean, we can go through all that, but I got a story for you on that if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Well, this is related to a business, and not all giving is money, but sometimes it can be. And this one particular business, there was somebody in the customer service who was struggling. Their attitude and some of their response numbers had dropped, but they were always high, and then it just dropped off. So the CEO said, when they wanted to make some changes, they said, let's find out a little bit more about her. And I think part of being generous is willing to get in the weeds and be empathetic or sympathetic to what's really going on in this person's life. Well, they found out that she had gone through a divorce. She had an $1,800 legal bill hanging over her head. And that, for some, would be a ton of money, some not so much. But this was enough of a weight that it was affecting her performance at work. So the CEO says to the manager, well, what do you think we could do about this? Well, I think we could find $1,800 somewhere. I think you're right. And so they just anonymously put $1,100 bills at this lady's desk in an envelope. Goodness. 2 weeks later, her numbers are back up. But they took the time to love on her. This CEO told me, I have 41,000 people. Wow. I can do for one what I want to do for all. And I think sometimes we look into the world and we see this, there's so many problems, it's so big, what do we, you know what? Start to start.
Yeah, just do what you can for that one person. That's awesome. So when you think about giving, you think about stewardship, it seems like a difficult concept for people to sell, especially, as a book, but you've been able to do it. What's attractive, do you think, about giving and gratitude in a person? What do you think is attractive when you meet someone who is generous?
You used one of my favorite words, gratitude. Gratitude is the footing that the Generous Life Foundation lives on. So my discipline and practice in everything we do, whether it's at top companies like In-N-Out Burger or schools across America, or even in our world-class Generous Students homeschool program, every exercise starts with a 1-minute gratitude. What are we grateful for? And you don't get carry forwards. Your audience understands that. It's accounting season. I think it's tax day, right? Carry forward probably fits. But no, what are 3 different ways every day I can exercise that gratitude muscle? When you're grateful, you start to move into this place of, you know what? I want what I have. So there's a contentment that sets in. The other thing that's fascinating about gratitude is you can't have anxiety working in your brain at the same time as gratitude. They don't work together. I would probably go out there and say, that's just how God created us. But I mean, some people would say, well, it's just happened that way. You pick how you want to decide that. But the fact of the matter is, non-faith oriented clinical psychologists tell us this is the reality. So what we're doing in education is saying, instead of going to the doctor for another pill to deal with your anxiety or depression or your stress, try gratitude.
Yeah, what an amazing idea. So let's talk a little about generosity and teamwork, because you write about this. How do you engage companies on leadership and generosity? And you shared a couple stories from that, but maybe at the leader level, how do you get leaders involved in thinking about this idea?
Well, language is important, right? And I think what's come back to us from many companies is you gave us a language of the 7 ways. We're wristband culture, so we got our 7 ways on the wristband, and I like giving, so I'm going to give you mine right
thank you,
now.
Brad.
And it's fresh. I just put it on this morning, okay? So no worries.
So cool.
But the idea is the more you think about the 7 ways, and you go through your day and your week and your month as a leader, you will find that they're right in front of you. And here's an example. I'm not a brainiac, nerdy kind of guy, but I've learned some things from Henry Cloud. In fact, he'll be on our Wow Factor in a couple weeks, or we'll be recording it, and then after that it'll get produced. One of the things Henry taught me is that in the back of our brain, we have this little thing, it's like the size of a Tic Tac, maybe a little bit bigger, called the reticular activating system. And it's this little thing that brings things into focus because there's so much stimulation in our life. So, for example, my kids one day were egging me on. We live in California, and they're like, did you know you can buy a car off of an app? Which is fun to tell a guy who makes apps. And I said, no. And they're like, yeah, download the Tesla app. And for at that time, it was $150. You can order a car on an app. So I just did it, not to keep the car, but just, is this true? I could order a car. I did, put the credit card number in, all this paid. And I left the house, and within 10 minutes of my walk, I saw 13 Teslas. Now, my question for you is, did those just rain out of the sky, or were they always there? Back to leading in the 7 ways. They're always there. It's just now that you've brought them into focus, they get into your reticular activator, and you see them. You find ways to be generous specifically with your words. You might have somebody in your company who's kind of bugging you. That would make you normal. And I start to, instead of wanting to go fix that person, I want to say, hey, can we just check in? How are you doing? And you might peel back one layer to that onion and find out somebody's sick, a car accident, somebody died. And it begins to shift our thoughts. Can we give the benefit of the doubt? Mark, is that generosity?
Yeah. Wow.
You say yeah. I say yeah too. Giving the benefit of the doubt. Oh, that's not fair. That's not. Yeah, it is. It's another form. Right. This all goes to the heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
a lot of great concepts.
Yeah, and we're nearing 200 leaders, and it was really right after the last election where I said, this understanding of what we think about today, 95% of it will be thought about tomorrow. Okay, so let's play this movie forward. Where does this go? Oh, I got an idea. Let's go find new content, and let's believe in this great country that there are great, good-hearted leaders all across it. Let's go find them. And we have a list this long. We keep finding them, and we keep putting them into the world. And we find people getting a lot of great leadership teaching through the life stories of phenomenal leaders. Yeah. Last week, it was the former CEO of Best Buy. He was employee number 4. He left with $140,000.
Wow.
I'd say he learned a few things along the way. Maybe we can learn from him, and as he would say, have less idiot experiences.
Yeah. Learn from those leaders.
Yeah.
Awesome, cool. Well, we've got just a few moments here. What do you think on the 7? What's often the most misunderstood one as you're teaching and you're going around to speak to groups?
I think that generosity of thoughts, this classic line, I don't know who said it, but I like it. What do you think about when you think about what you think about? Just sit in that.
Mm-hmm.
Do we take time to think about what we're thinking about? And are we thinking about things that are right and true and cool and lovely and right? How are we thinking about people? And then you have to back it up a little bit and say, where does information come from that affects our thought life? I just had Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney. He's the only F-16 fighter pilot and PGA professional on the planet.
Oh, wow.
And he was talking about how he's a Fox News contributor, but he's like, I don't watch the news. Like, I can't control any of that. And so I'm very careful what I take in because it affects our thinking. So there you have it. I think thoughts, generous thoughts. And you know what, Mark, as we close, it's not just generous thoughts of others. It's generous thoughts about ourselves. How much negative self-talk can we have? How many times have I thought, man, I believe that idea, love your neighbor as yourself. Sometimes I feel sorry for my neighbor.
Yeah.
I'm, thinking less of me.
Mm-hmm.
So think about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really helpful. Well, we've been with Brad Formsma, the author of the best-selling book, I Like Giving. Brad, where can people learn more about you?
ILikeGiving.com. And, of course, the WOW factor stands for Words of Wisdom. And wherever you listen to free podcasts, we're there.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brad.
And if you listen, you become a wowzer.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brad. Appreciate it. And we will stop right there. Thank you so much.
Great to be with you.